She's going to be talking about some of the work that they were doing. But Deb Pontzer is the president of Grow Rural PA, and it's a community-based group of nonprofit that's dedicated to growing economies and improving the lives of folks in some of the rural parts of Pennsylvania. And so Deb's going to kind of give an overview of her background and work that she's been doing in the other side of Pennsylvania here to our west, and talk about the work that she's doing and has been doing over the last few years, and is involved with a cohort that EPCAMR has recently become involved with. And I had a chance to meet with her down in Washington, D.C. as they were kind of finishing up their project as we were beginning ours. And so I'm very interested in seeing how far the completion of that project has come here since meeting with her several months ago. And was really happy that Ann and I and the committee were able to invite her to speak at the conference here to just give you a little different perspective on a little change from the typical water quality and technical passive treatment type technology and watershed assessment work, but maybe get into this more economic development angle and partnerships that are needed to be intertwined with our communities and watershed groups that we've been talking about earlier today. So with that, Deb or Mike, if you want to show the video first, is that what you'd like to do? It's the DOE video. So Mike will play that and then Deb will come up.
Grow Rural PA was founded to build capacity among the rural counties and to provide advocacy. I had been working for years with some of the folks that were retired from the Department of Energy, and there was a grant that was specifically about capacity building, and the name of the grant is Capacity Building for Repurposing Energy Assets. And we turned around the grant application, brought together a landowner and a gentleman who owns a powdered metal plant, a banker, and a scientist. We decided to put together a grant application that said, hey, you want to know what a community wants to do with its retired energy assets? Well, we got a plan for you. We have many, many acres of reclaimed mine land in central Pennsylvania.
The mining industry is on a decline. We've got millions of tons of coal waste on the ground that's already been mined, and it's got all these value-added minerals and critical elements in it, helping reclaim the land that's been scarred before the mining law came into effect, and it helps industry continue to move in the United States rather than depending on others for our products and our metals.
One of the things that works very well on a reclaimed mine land is solar panels. Now, the problem with solar panels is getting onto the grid. But what we were looking at was how could we use solar energy to produce green hydrogen? And we had consumers of hydrogen within a 50-mile radius.
We have powdered metal industry in St. Mary's who can use a lot of these metals in their production of their material.
We decided to knit together solar energy on reclaimed mine lands, along with producing green hydrogen, being able to compress that hydrogen and get it to the end user, and simultaneously use the solar energy to clean water, because you can use the energy to distill the water and get the acid mine drainage, separate that out and pull the critical minerals out of the acid mine drainage.
Looking at the green hydrogen and the opportunities that that could create down the road, the powder metal process uses a lot of hydrogen. And as we look towards the future and we start seeing things like soft magnetics and those types of technologies coming out of stainless steels, coming out of the powder metal industry, we're going to see more and more of that use, their need for good supplies of hydrogen.
And we don't make or produce any rare earth element metals and elements in the United States today. They matter because they're part of the production of all of our technology that we're using today, whether it's a cell phone, whether it's medical technology.
The beauty of our roadmap is that we know it is viable. And once we're able to show that you can produce green energy and use it locally, this is something that then can be reproduced or replicated on many other thousands of acres of mine land. We're reimagining life for the next generation of rural Pennsylvanians and beyond. I'm done now. Presentation's over. This was a presentation that we had to do when we got the grant, the capacity building grant. We were asked to put together, after we got our money, we were then asked to do a video. And the video sums things up pretty nicely. So you're going to probably hear me repeat myself a bit, but I feel like I told Bobby just a few minutes ago, I feel like now for something entirely different. After the last presentation, this is, we're changing lanes completely here. So again, good afternoon. I'm Deborah Pontzer, and I'm the president of Grow Rural PA. And it is an honor to be here with the caliber of speakers and presenters and their topics. I'd also like to thank Bobby and Ann for asking me to be here and to talk about the work of Grow Rural PA and what we've done with the funding from the Department of Energy. Grow Rural PA was awarded a grant in a new program that was launched in the fall of 2023, and it was entitled Capacity Building for Repurposing Energy Assets. And it was funded by the Office of Fossil and Carbon Management, and it was under the direction of the director from the Energy Asset Transitions Division. Grow Rural PA was one of 8 communities in the nation to receive funding under this new program. But first, let me tell you a little bit about who I am and about Grow Rural PA. I met and married my husband in Washington, D.C., and when he finished law school in his 30s, he decided he wanted us to move back to his hometown, Ridgeway, Pennsylvania, a town of 4,000 in central Pennsylvania. Talk about culture shock. There was no NPR, and there was only dial-up AOL. But actually, the transition was a lot easier than I thought because I just fell in love with this beautiful place, Pennsylvania, the place they now call the Pennsylvania Wilds. I was working as a forensic accountant for one of the big 6 at the time, and in 1992, the notion of remote work was completely foreign, so I transferred my skills to higher education. I worked in delivering post-secondary education to 2 very remote rural counties, Elk and Cameron, and then doing the same for the University of Pittsburgh for 8 counties. In 2005, I was recruited by Congressman John Peterson to join his staff as a workforce and economic development specialist, and after he retired, I stayed with the incumbent, Congressman Glenn G.T. Thompson. But I was growing restless. I had spent 16 years working for Congress and helping communities and constituents and constantly running up against the same barrier to success, lack of capacity. And then in November of 2020, Tony Pippa of the Brookings Institution, he published a piece entitled Reimagining Rural Policy. And I had my aha moment. Tony Pippa posited that, quote, current federal policy is ill-suited to successfully enable U.S. rural communities to meet the opportunities and challenges of the 21st century. Rural America is diverse, racially, demographically, geographically, and economically. Federal policy must modernize and evolve new approaches if it is to leverage the unique assets of different rural communities, to maximize its support for local leaders and local solutions, and ensure decision-making and economic benefits are equally shared and measured, and improve community-level outcomes. And Tony Pippa has the perfect chart to illustrate why our communities have a hard time. Pippa and those at Brookings graphically illustrate the complex web of federal assistance for rural communities in this spaghetti chart. There are 15 official federal definitions for rural, 400 programs, and 13 different departments to navigate. So it is no wonder that small communities feel overwhelmed and unable to compete, given that so few of our communities have any staff that's dedicated to economic development, let alone community development, let alone conservation. And so how do you navigate this incredibly complicated web of federal resources? So in 2021, oops, what have I done? In 2021, I retired from congressional service, and I founded Grow Rural PA, a community-based nonprofit dedicated to building human capital and advocating for rural communities. We do so by providing technical and management assistance, especially with grant writing and grant administration, working with federal and state agencies and organizations on the need for adequate and equitable resources, and educating policymakers on why investing in rural communities can provide a meaningful return to the state and to the local community. And as I said in January of this year, Grow Rural PA was awarded a capacity building grant by the Department of Energy. For those of you who are not familiar with this grant program, here's a brief outline of the objectives of the grant. The capacity building grant of $100,000 was targeted for communities that have been historically dependent on fossil fuel energy assets, and it had a four-pronged approach. First, to assist communities with technical capacity and expertise to develop a plan or a concept for the reuse of a retiring energy asset, and which would also help to prepare that community for the challenges associated with a changing energy economy. Second, to develop a plan to recruit and retain a skilled workforce. Next, to tackle environmental impacts suffered by so many energy communities. And finally, to provide the Department of Energy with data about each one of the projects. The funding opportunity was announced in August of 23, and in January of 24, the Office of Fossil Energy and Carbon Management announced the awardees. I would be remiss if I did not recognize my peers from the first cohort and their projects. There were 8 communities in the first round, and we stretched from Alaska to Utah and to Eastern Kentucky, and we were all very different from each other. In Alaska, the Alaska Municipal League was assessing the utility level needs to repurpose the Healy 2 power plant. The Northwest Colorado Energy Initiative planned to compile a comprehensive community survey in order to formulate a strategy that aligns the community's needs with its preferences. In Florida County, Kentucky, they were working on building a strategic economic diversification plan future generations. And on that note, thank you.
Do we have any, don't, you can't run away yet. Do we have any questions? No? Okay, you can run away now. Yeah, it'll be a quick break, and then we'll come back in here for the last few presentations of the day. Thank you.